Assalamu alaikum, ji ayanu, pakhair ragale, ni hao, chunashume, washmale, ohai gonzaimas, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifahal, ahlan wasalan, marhaba, hale shama chatore, and a very amazing good morning and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan. I hope everybody's perfect. You're ready to kickstart your day. You're ready to rise and shine, wake and bake, get up, and be more focused about whatever you want to do in life, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the day is Monday, and it's 2nd of April, and I think everybody had quite a lot of fun, well, playing with other people's feelings or emotions by just celebrating April's Fool. So, well, quite a lot of my friends did that, but I kind of knew it. But other than that, to all of the Christian community around the globe, a very happy Easter to everyone out there. And may all of us be blessed and together as well, because Pakistan is land for everyone, for every religion which is out there, and we know how to respect them. But before we get started, because 2nd of April, ladies and gentlemen, is very important day for all those parents, well, I think I'll have to come back to that. You'll have to feel a bit anticipated. But right now, top stories. Let's take a look what's happening all around the globe. Interesting. The Christian community celebrated Easter across the country to mark the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Special prayers and ceremonies held in all churches across the country, while children performed religious singing. Happy Easter. And now talking about spring, where the different restaurants and hotels have made special arrangements to welcome spring season. People from all spheres of life are thronging various food points to enjoy delicious meals with aroma of spring colors at these points. Well, yeah. Aroma sounds cool. I feel hungry now. And last but not the least, cricket comes home, where Pakistan thrashed West Indies by 143 runs in the first T20 of three-match series at National Stadium, Karachi. Pakistan led the three-match series 1-0. Amazing. Well, West Indies never even got a chance to play a warm-up match, and our players just got done playing PSL. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so these were the top stories, the stories we gathered for you guys, which we think are very entertaining. And cricket is something which we can never ever leave behind, because we're a cricketing nation. And not just cricket, we are into quite a lot of other sports too as well. But this is something which we are not discussing today. Ladies and gentlemen, today is 2nd of April, and all the United Nations member states observe World Autism Awareness Day, which is today. Autism, ladies and gentlemen, is not a disease. So far, it is known as disability as far as we have researched and or R&Ds have actually worked, but it can be managed. People or kids who are actually autistic, for them, world is a different sight. This is what we perceive, and this is how it might be, because experts are definitely going to tell me what it is. But you know, the way they hear things, the way they see things, or the way they do things is a bit different from what we might call that, you know, I might not see the world the same way as well. But the good news is that it's not a disease, and we're not even talking about whether it's curable or not, but it's manageable, because it is said to be a disability which is lifelong as well. Now, what happens to explain that? We do have very apt guests as well, but for people who are out there or for schools, there's one thing which I thought about it while I was studying, and that is that whether a child is autistic or not, they should always have a platform to study together with kids whom we think that, you know, they might be able to understand. The only reason why I'm saying that is that, you know, when a normal kid, which we call normal, or a kid with special needs, they're going to study together, or if they're going to play together, I think they will respect the needs of the other kid too as well. So this is what my point is. Let's see what the experts over here today have to say. And for all those parents who are out there, you know, the best part is that it's manageable and you can teach them quite a lot of things. So on my right-hand side, ladies and gentlemen, we've got two members, and it is labeled as Team Mahir-e-Nafsiyat. So on my right hand side, we have been joined by clinical psychologist from Mahir-e-Nafsiyat, Rooma Shahid. Hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Welcome, Sam. Thanks for the
Thank you very much for
introduction.
joining us.
You're
And
welcome.
last but not the least, the CEO and the founder of Mahir-e-Nafsiyat, clinical psychologist himself, Mr. Adil Ali. Hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me. Good
Thank-
morning, everyone.
Thank you very much for joining us. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Guten Tag. So, Rooma, I'm going to start with you. How important do you think is this day? Because I've seen quite a lot of parents struggling with their autistic kids because they don't know what to do.
I think it's extremely important because autism is a condition that it starts in the early 2 years of age of a person's life, and it's kind of related to our daily activity, such as our behavior, our social training, social skills. So that's what we do in our daily routine, like talk to people and stuff. So we need to understand what this is. And just like you said, it's a condition, it's not a disease. So we're here to spread more awareness on how it can be managed through different therapeutical techniques, and we as a psychologist, how we can spread awareness and prevent different social issues from taking place.
And then different solutions too as well, that how to stop it or probably how to manage it as well. So Adil, moving on to you. First of all, I want to know, because the last time when you were here, it wasn't really Team Mahir-e-Nafsiyat. You were here as a clinical psychologist, so you have done quite a lot of work. You've made this, you're a founder of this as well. So what is the mission behind Mahir-e-Nafsiyat, and then how would you relate it to today?
Okay, so Mahir-e-Nafsiyat is basically an organization that we recently founded, and the missions of, first of all, the primary mission of the organization is to bring awareness to general public about the mental health disorders.
Okay.
And so part of it is what we are doing today on World Autism Day. So spreading awareness about autism, having people talk about it. And another thing that we do at Mahir-e-Nafsiyat is to provide online counseling
Yeah.
and psychotherapy services. So if anyone in all over Pakistan needs a counselor or a psychotherapist or a psychologist online, we are here to provide it over a video connection. So you don't
Well,
need
that's
to
cool.
visit a doctor's office.
Yeah.
You can join from your smartphone or from your computer, right?
Sorry. And I think this is very easy for a clinical psychologist as well, because all you have to do is ask questions, and that can be done online and globally. So that's a cool idea, and we need to evolve with technology. But now let's come down to a point where I want a very detailed explanation about what autism is and who do we call an autistic child.
Okay, so autism is basically, as you said, it's a disability and it's a lifelong thing that's going on. So first of all, autism has certain limitations. So autism basically brings certain limitation to the kids who are suffering from it. First of all, they have communication problems. They have difficulty communicating, and they have difficulty explaining their feelings, and they have difficulty managing their relationships, and they also have repetitive behaviors. So they tend to get indulged in repetitive behaviors. So, and things needs to be in certain order for those kids. The world is not the same like for everyone else. If I see a cup on my table every day, it has to be there every day for me to feel comfortable as an autistic person. So I don't want to label the kids as well as such, but again, it's a condition and it needs to be managed. People need to know about it, and similarly the parents also. It's a big struggle for them. My hats off to all parents out there who are managing their kids with autism. It's not an easy job, but I'm so proud of them that they are doing it.
Yeah.
And again, it's manageable. It's a multidisciplinary approach when it comes to managing those kids. We bring psychologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and there's a whole bunch of people involved in the treatment and in the management of those kids. But it's doable. The better, the early you start managing it, the early it's preventable. And the early it's manageable. It becomes more easily manageable.
All right. Okay, so Rooma, tell us, what are the difficulties they might face?
Social skills, they are less communicative.
Okay.
They feel hesitant towards talking to other people. They have problems in peer relationships,
Okay.
social relationships. They tend to be more isolated, and it's also connected with so many behavioral problems.
Okay.
Just like Adil said, they have repetitive behaviors.
Yeah.
And a few other, it also comes with a few other learning disabilities, such as when you see them writing down on a piece of paper, it's usually you see like scribbles, lines and stuff.
Yeah.
So for them, those lines do mean something, but for the general world, that's just, they would say it's nonsense, but then we need to understand and see from the person's perspective, from the child's perspective, and deal with them accordingly. And just like you said, like Adil said, this ABA behavioral approach is the most widely prevalent therapeutical technique that involves different sects of people, such as occupational therapists, a speech therapist, psychiatrists, and psychologists. And it also involves parents and teachers, and they all work together collectively to maintain and enhance behavior.
But I think if you might see the other picture, that tells me that it's our weakness that we're not able to understand what they're writing or saying. So in a way, we really need to prepare our own selves as well. But before we move on towards what therapies are there to manage them, people often confuse within autism and Down syndrome, because they think that probably the symptoms are the same and they are not able to understand. So can you please shed some light on what is autism and what is Down syndrome?
So the first and the most important thing that differentiates autism from Down syndrome is that people with Down syndrome have some visible facial deformalities. So they would have like droopy eyes and some other facial characteristics that are different from normal people. And then comes in the genetic characteristics. So when we talk about Down syndrome, it's an abnormality in the chromosome. So basically it's trisomy 21. So the chromosome
which
number
I have no
20
idea about, but it's all right, yeah.
being
Trisomy 21.
So being a bit more scientific here. So yeah, it's, let's just call it a chromosomal abnormality. So that's where the difference lies.
All right,
Yeah.
very nice. So what happens in autism? Is it about some gene? Is it about some anything else? If you're talking to be scientific over here, Mr. Adam?
So yes, so genes also play a role in autism, and again the neurology, the formation of the brain, the development of the brain, how brain develops. Generally, it's said that the ladies who conceive the child at later stages of their life, they tend to have kids who suffer from autism generally. So again, because it's a developmental disorder.
So if you have kids in the later years of your life, that's when
that
it's
makes it more prone.
likely.
Yeah, that's make it more prone to develop autism. The kids may get it at some point in life.
Okay, so all of this time, when a woman is pregnant, we just keep on going to the doctor, we get everything checked up, even get the gender checked up. Is there a way where we can figure out whether there's something wrong with our baby or not? Do we have that sort of technology?
I'm not sure.
So that we can actually be prepared that, okay, now these are the things which we need to do.
So symptoms actually show up with time. So when we say that by age 2 or by age 3, we somehow get a mild idea of that maybe this child is suffering from autism.
And you cannot tell it by the facial expressions, or you can?
In Down syndrome, as we said, that there are some deformalities. In that case, it's maybe doable, but not in autism.
Okay, so autism is just like everybody,
Like anyone suffering from high blood pressure, maybe.
So yeah, let's start from here. How do we realize that the child is autistic?
So from the communication perspective, that child may have some difficulty in communicating and when making some relationships, and the talking patterns, some of those kids tend to repeat what they are being told. So like if someone is told a statement like Baba, they would start repeating it as it is, and they would not, try to make more out of it, and will just be staying with those words for a long time.
All right.
So
this is one thing, or probably when they go to school, they cannot write, or they cannot listen.
They have like difficulties in focus and concentration, and also that they're easily distractible. So all these things do account towards autism. Yeah.
Because I've seen one of the Bollywood films as well. It is based on this topic, and they managed it very well. That by the end of the film, everybody was crying. And it is hard for kids to realize, in fact, that, why are they facing these many difficulties? But I think it's on the other side that the teachers and the parents cannot realize that, because half of I think that I might be autistic when I was growing up, and, I might be still, because I always had difficulties with numbers. And I was very weak with maths. And so, all I used to get when I used to get back home after my maths results was probably a chappal from my parent. And they never thought and realized about the fact that, that this is not my forte, I cannot do it naturally. So how do we explain all of those parents to keep a good eye on their kids, that you need to check whether, they're having trouble or not, because all we can do is send them to another tuition center to learn better maths, but that's not possible.
So yeah, so we need to basically think more about it. So the parents, from the parents' perspective, it's not always the child's, not wanting to do it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not able to do it. So that's what it's very critical to figure out the difference between both of those things, whether the child is capable of doing it and is not doing it, or whether the child is not capable of it at all. So that's what the difference is, and the parents and the teachers have a very critical role in helping the psychologist, helping in the diagnosis of the
Exactly.
of autism.
So now this is the point where you guys come in. Now parents have realized that okay, there's something wrong with my kid. They bring the kid to you. So what kind of therapies are there, and according to age? For example, somebody came in very late, probably out at 20. They realized that there's a problem. So let's go from age category 3, where parents actually figured it out earlier, and then how does it differentiate from the processes and the procedures of different therapies till the age 20 or 25?
So at early stages, we start with applied behavior analysis. That's called ABA. That's most widely used for the management of autism, and that's a kind of behavioral technique where we basically reinforce the behaviors that we want to inculcate in the kids, that we want the kids to have, and we also at the same time discourage the behaviors that we don't want the kid to take on.
Okay.
So
what type of behaviors are we talking over here where you want them to adopt, and what type of behaviors you want them to change, and how do you make it happen?
So okay, so the kind of for example, like doing your lunch at time, starting your breakfast, eating something on time, and because the kids with autism are not not like a regular kid. They have difficulties, so they won't be comfortable with doing the things that other kids would do generally.
And things like, as small things as eating, trying to eat with a spoon. Even that's hard for them.
Okay.
So there are different things that we have to use for them in order to keep them focused, in order to just carry out these very simple tasks as well.
So
All
they
right.
get-
So how do you become friends with them then? Because it gets difficult for you to get into their head and then tell them. So what kind of relationship is required for a psychologist or a teacher or a mother or a father or sisters or friends or brothers?
I think in order to know them more, we have to be more like them.
Really?
Like, not to say that we become artistic, because but more like try to associate with them just the way they see things. We see things the same way. Such as if they see, let's say, a book full of stars instead of numbers. So let's just start seeing stuff the way they do, and let's just get to understand them better.
And life is beautiful from their perspective as well. They're living in their own life. They have their own thinking. They have their own perception, and we also try to relate with that and empathize with them.
All right.
Okay, we put ourselves in their shoes and look at the world from their perspective, and that's what makes us easier with them, and makes them comfortable with us.
So are they more prone to making friends who are autistic because they understand their world better, or?
Again, that's another thing with them, that they have really hard peer relationships, and it's like they hardly have friends. If you go out and see autistic children, they don't really have friends. They have imaginary friends more than real friends. So another technique that we also use is imaginative play therapy, where we kind of make them, or we too imagine a situation where we have a group of friends sitting together. I'm not sure if you have seen those cartoons, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So that's another situation that we kind of put them into, and they imagine their life the way they want to be.
Yeah, and I think that, on a very lighter note, just because you just said that, they had imaginary friends, I think, because my wife got some imaginary friends as well, and their names are Ram, Lata, and I don't know, Eddie and whatnot, so thank you, now I know.
There you go.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, but so now coming back to the therapies, first of all, we had ABA, and then what are the other therapies?
Imaginative behavior therapy.
Yeah.
Just like you said. We also have speech therapy, used for children who have problems in interaction. We have social skills training in order to make them more eligible for
So
communication.
let's talk about these therapies again. So what do we do in imaginary behavior therapy?
It's like a play therapy where we kind of imagine a few, just like you said, imaginative names. We give different people different names.
Imagine Ramlata.
Okay, let's say
Ram and
Ramlata, yeah.
Yeah.
So we imagine different names, Ramlata, Eddie and stuff, and they become friends with them, and they tend to communicate with them. And during that process, they let out their mind, their feelings, their emotions, and that's how we get to know them more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So play therapy is very important. So kids like to play. Of that age group, they would love to do it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of help them use those activities for our treatment purposes. So we kind of inculcate the things that we want them to do within their play. So while they're playing with their imaginative friends, so we are also inculcating our treatment part.
Yeah, all right.
And that's how it works with those
So
kids.
you're making
obviously.
sure that the imaginary friends are here too
Are
as
there,
well, and
yeah.
you pretend the same. Well, that's a cool idea. And okay, now coming back to the speech therapy, because they are often at times have difficulty speaking or learning to speak. So what kind of speech therapy when somebody's not able to speak? What do we do then?
So there are specialist speech therapists. So we get them on board, and they also work on specific development, like for specific nouns the child struggle with. There are specific letters that they struggle with. So the speech therapists work closely with them on helping them overcome those barriers, and it works actually. So in the long term, many kids are able to actually overcome those barriers and are able to communicate as well in some extent. So there are limitations though, but they are able to do it. We actually make them manageable again. We manage the whole disorder and help them live a normal life.
Very nice. And now coming down to social skills. How do we develop them?
So social skills, so we actually help them like understand how to interact with someone at the first place, how to make friends at school, how to interact with the kids that they're dealing with in everyday life, in their tuition centers, at their daycare maybe, and at the school as well. So we help them manage those kids.
Okay. And at this point of time, because I want to move on a bit further towards, I think, a very grief problem within our own society, which is related to these kids too as well. But before I do that, the role parents need to play and the role teachers need to play.
Well, I think the parents need to be more understanding towards the situation of the child, and they're more cooperative and more tolerant. So if the child is like repeating a particular behavior, they need to be more tolerant towards that, and just instead of like shouting out at them and timing them out, they need to bear with them.
Yeah. And teachers?
So teachers have a very critical role, as I said, in diagnosis as well.
So okay, first of all, what we need to do is we need to decide, so the education for these kids needs to be inclusive?
It could
or
be
they need to go to a different school? Or is it important for them to go to a different school which is at a slower pace?
It is actually important. I personally think that it is important for them to go to a different school, because there are specialized programs for them, like 511. So there will be 5 kids, 1 teacher and a teaching assistant. So there are specialized programs for them. I'm not 100% sure how many of you got in here in Pakistan. Not all schools offer it, but there are schools now. There are schools developing here for those special kids, and they actually, it's good in the sense that they are getting more focused attention that is necessary for them to learn quickly.
Okay, amazing that is. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point of time, we do have a video to share, but before we go towards the video, when we are going to come back, in Pakistan, almost every day, there are 11 registered cases of child abuse, and these abuses come from, first of all, the family members, then from the second cousins, then comes the outsiders or a stranger too as well, or probably a driver who works at your home, or probably a cook who works at your home as well, and the parents are too busy doing their work and they cannot pay some serious attention, because these kids at times cannot say a lot of things. This is what we just discussed. So what we need to do is that we need to keep an eye on them all of the time, 24/7. There are kids. We are the ones who need to look after. So we're going to talk about that a little too as well. But go ahead and take a look at this video we got out for you for World Autism Awareness Day.
A creation of brilliance. Some of us are a different brilliant. We see things differently. Or hear things differently. Some of us only see solutions. Or are just everyday heroes. Sometimes we struggle in social situations, and we really appreciate when you give us a hand. And you may not know by looking at us, but we can be anyone. And this is how we came into the world, as has a different brilliant. Because we're on the spectrum.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, we at PT World over here definitely try to ensure that we spread awareness, and as much as we know, we try to get the guests over too as well, and we keep on doing that on World this morning. But before going towards the video, I told you that we're going to talk about a very brief issue, but before we move on to that, ladies and gentlemen, there are many geniuses around the world who were autistic. For example, Albert Einstein was autistic. So for all those parents who might be thinking, you know, you might come to a point which I don't think is a very righteous point to say over here at this point of time, but you do not feel very okay about your kids. But you never know what kind of revolution they can bring in if they are managed and they are taught in a very well-behaved manner. I think they become a very amazing part of the society. So now coming back to the point where I wanted to talk about that there are every day 11 different cases of child abuse in Pakistan which are registered. And these groups are more prone to it. What do you have to say about it, first of all?
So I think yes. First of all, this group is one of those vulnerable groups to abuse, because they are the kids who cannot express their feelings. They have difficulty communicating. They have difficulty making relationships and communicating what's going on with them. So the perpetrators of abuse generally target such groups. Okay. They know that this is a kid who won't tell anyone, and so it's a good idea to maybe attack that. So this is one of those vulnerable groups in our society.
And so I think the weakness lies in the hands of the parents too as well, that they were not able to look after their kid, or probably they were busy, and you know, such a tyranny did take place. So first of all, what's their role, and then how do we need to keep it? For example, if you have an autistic child in your house, what are the things we need to do, small things?
I think the parents need to look for the first signs of any behavioral change or any behavioral disturbance.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So what can be those behaviors? Let's talk about them. Give them a hint.
Yeah, like extreme fidgeting, extreme isolation, extreme crying spells. Those are the first major signs that parents need to look for. And other than that, I think parents and children should have a certain level of trust between them, and parents should be more friendly with these people, with
But
these
imagine
children.
if, Ruma, if somebody's having difficulty talking, how do you think they're going to express anyways? How are we going to find it out?
It's actually very difficult to. So with kids who are suffering from autism, it becomes more challenging for us as well, so for teachers as well, for parents as well. So what we need to do, we need to work with them on building those capacity for communication. And you know, those trainings. So basically, once the kid has developed.
Okay, I'm sorry that I have to stop you over here, ladies and gentlemen. We just have to go for a small break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will be back, we'll be continuing the conversation with Adil. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PT World, you watching World this morning alongside Shazad Khan. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the day is Monday, and the date is 2nd of April 2018, which is a very important day, as it is set to be celebrated and observed by all the United Nations member states, because it is World Autism Awareness Day. And with me, I've got Team Mahir-e-Nafsiyat. I've been joined by Ms. Ruma Shahid, who's a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and Mr. Adil Ali, who's a clinical psychologist, founder and CEO of Mahir-e-Nafsiyat. And before going towards the break, what I wanted to ask was that, you know, this certain group, you know, of child who are autistic are more prone to sex abuse. And this is what I wanted to talk about, that how do we actually have to prevent them? And God forbid if something happens. So I'm going to change the dimension. Now I'm going to talk from a pedophile's probably lens, that why do they do that? Because pedophilia is said to be a disease too as well, and why do they target such kids? So Mr. Adil, let's get started.
Okay, so basically Pedophilia is something that's a kind of sexual urges and desires
Yeah.
to have that activity with a kid who is not yet reached the age of puberty.
Okay.
And autistic kids, obviously, as we talk about them, we talk about those kids who have recently developed this disorder or who are suffering from this but haven't reached the age of puberty, and that is a target group for such kind of pedophiles. Pedophilia is a disorder, and again, this is something that that is discovered. That's a sexual preference that is discovered by the pedophiles. From their perspective, it's something that is not they have chosen, but it's something that they have discovered with the passage of time, that they have such kind of sexual attraction and preference. But acting on that in a society, it's very obviously it's very extreme form of it, and it needs to be managed. Pedophilia is a disorder, and it needs to be treated as well. There is proper treatment available for it, and it can be like we can prevent those people from targeting any such kind of kids in the future, only if they talk about it, only if it is discussed, only if it is diagnosed timely.
But how do we, I mean, why do we even, God forbid, become pedophiles? I mean, if it's a disease, do we develop it ourselves, or is it like
So
some
there are
crazy
a
mind
lot of
thing?
it could be the cause could be genetic, and it also could be behavioral. So like someone for a
So
kid,
you being,
for a
I mean,
kid, yeah.
anybody being a pedophile can be genetic?
Yeah, it could be genetic. It runs in families as well. There's some research to back this statement as well. And so
Dirty families, man.
yeah, so I mean, it's also learned as well for some kids who have actually been sexually abused as kids. So they have also learned this. They may think that this is something that is normal in the society, and also for families where the kids are abused, where kids are sexually abused, and the kids have witnessed that. So they when they grow up, they're like more prone to develop this kind of.
So these pretty much are the causes that's why you become into a person who.
These could be the causes. Yeah,
All
this
right.
could be the causes.
So now let's talk about its treatments. How do you treat a pedophile?
So we basically use different treatment strategies. Cognitive behavioral techniques are used. We actually work with the cognitive distortions, and we also use certain techniques like aversive therapy. We relate some kind of aversive stimuli with those thoughts, and we tend to like gradually, with the passage of time, decrease those urges, as well as decrease stop the person from acting on those urges.
All right.
So we kind of manage it again like autism.
Anything you want to add over here?
A few other techniques such as aversion therapy, just like you said, where we kind of associate an unpleasant stimuli with a pleasant stimuli. And even though like these people have very rigid thought patterns, so it does get hard to treat them. But it's not curable, like we said,
Okay.
but it's treatable.
So how does it might affect to a kid of that group? You know, if God forbid something like that happen, and if that kid's coming to you, how do you realize that there might be something wrong other than just being autistic?
Okay, so basically, a lot of trainings needs to be done with the kids, as well as with the parents, as well as with the teachers. So for all of this group actually helps in identifying that this kid, maybe something is going wrong with this kid. There are chances that he or she could have been abused by someone. While talking about the training, the government of Punjab recently has started, like they've devised a book for this purpose, and they've added it in the academic curriculum. That's the basic sex education for kids, and that is something that we also do with autistic kids as well. But it takes a lot of more effort than a regular kid. But we can teach them. We can actually the very basic thing we can tell them that if someone is trying to approach you in a manner that you're uncomfortable with, then you need to at least scream at the loudest that you can. This is something that all kids can do. So more than 50% of the autistic kids can speak, right? So when they can speak, we can also train them to how to shout out loud and cry for help. So yeah, that is something, and also we need to also train them about the body parts, the private body parts, and where someone can touch you and where someone can't, and under what
And also,
circumstances.
like, set certain boundaries.
There's set certain boundaries with everyone in the relationships as well, that the parents can help you clean your private parts, but no one else can. And in some certain cases, some doctors can do it, but that too in the presence of your parents. So this is something that we, with the passage of time, inculcate in those kids, and we teach them all of this.
Exactly, and it is no different than any other kid too as well, because you never know when such a dirty man is probably, or a woman is roaming around as well, because it's not just about men, it's about women too as well, and it's about babies. This is what we're discussing, and it is very critical for the parents. But other than that, in the West, they have this, sex offender registry system. And how does it work over there? And do you think that in days to come, we can have a system of that sort, where such people can be thrown out of the community or the society we live in?
So it's a wonderful system that the Western countries have. They call it sex offender registry. So anyone who has like any kind of history of sex abuse, or even like inappropriately touching someone, or any kind of that is reported to the police and to the concerned authorities, they make a list of it. They put it in they put the address and the complete information of that person online and make it available to public. So if you like Google it, any Western country, especially in the US, you find it with the area zip code. You can actually look for the people who have history of who are actually sex offenders living in that area. So it's actually very beneficial for the parents. They can actually watch out for those people and keep their kids safe. And at the same time, I think we are at that point of time as a country where our police stations are getting digital, and the internet is coming into play everywhere. And I think this is the time we can also incorporate this thing with the police stations. It's not very difficult because the cases are being reported. We can create a simple list and make it available to public, and sorted with the areas as well. So sex offender registry is something that I see coming to Pakistan very soon.
Now, Ruma, I want a very different perspective, and the perspective I want over here is that the only reason why I said that it's not just only men, there's women too as well, because we over here these days in the cities of Pakistan experience that people are so prone to getting those, midwives, or I don't know what, nannies probably, who hold the kids all day long, feed them and whatnot. So from a woman's point of view, how different do you think things can be?
Well, not really much different, because it's this the abuse.
I mean, mothers
taken.
trusting nannies. Do you think that really not needs to be there, and they need to do their own rain checks?
Again, I think it's more important for us to educate the parents, like not to solely depend on one person, and just like keep an eye on what's going on around the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I think towards the end of the show, I want everybody, all of you, to actually share the roles parents need to play and how we need to manage it, and how do we need to be very patient with all of those kids and make our country and the society and the community a better place to live.
Okay, I would like to just add on a bit to the fact that child abuse is an epidemic right now. It's a devastating situation, and but it's here, and we have to deal with it. So the thing is that we need to, educate the parents more than the children, and we need to let them know that keep an eye on the children, and communicate more with them, and tell them what's important, and tell them how to say no. Tell them to be more assertive.
Very nice. Other, what about you?
Trust, I think trust and a very basic relationship between a very good, healthy relationship between the parents and the kids. I think this is critical in this situation, and the parents and the teachers need to do the sex training, the basic body safe touch training, what to do, who can touch the kid and who cannot, and under what circumstances it's okay and under what circumstances it's not. So these are the circumstances and scenarios that needs to be taught to the kids, and also we need to we need to encourage the kids to talk about it. If someone is making them uncomfortable by touching them, or inappropriately touching them and doing things that they don't like, and so we need to educate our kids that they speak about it, they tell their parents, they tell the people around them that they trust about it. So once they start talking about it, it becomes more easy to actually to diagnose it and to figure out and to actually prevent it from the parents' perspective.
Thank you very much for being with us. It was lovely to have you on this special day, and thank you very much for sharing your expertise. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are having trouble, if you have a problem, you can definitely look up for them, Mahir-e-Nafsiyat. They've got a Facebook page as well, and they can give you an online session. So all you need to do is probably write to us on our Facebook fan page. But before I move on to that, what our fan pages are, there are a few things which I noticed since the time that I've been a father, alhamdulillah, for the last 4.5 years, 5 years, and inshallah in years to come. That is when you have your own kids, you realize that at a certain age when they grow up, you really do not hug them, you do not kiss them, you do not shake hands with them, because within our own culture in Pakistan, I see it very beautiful. I see my father, because I've got 5 sisters, alhamdulillah, the only thing he's going to do is just probably to give away blessings, is just to put the hand on the head, and that's it, and that's very respectful too, and it's a part of our culture. So, and then you realize that, even if your sisters or brothers or anybody's kids are out there and they're very cute, refrain from kissing them. Why do you want to kiss them? Please don't do that. And parents always tell their kids that, do not allow anybody to do that. But once it's going to happen, imagine how embarrassing you might feel, because you might not have the intention, but this is how intentions might grow. So please make sure that you do not touch anybody else's babies and just look after your own. So ladies and gentlemen, do write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, it's World This Morning without a G. On Daily Motion and YouTube, it's World This Morning. The fabulous repeat is going to be at 11 p.m. We are destined and we are determined to deliver information and awareness about all of these different aspects within the society. We'll keep on doing that because this is what my mission is. Don't forget to log on for our websites as well to ask for any information. Feel free. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Have a good day.